Hey guys, tonight, we're slipping quietly through the crooked, mud-soaked alleys of a medieval town just before sunrise. The fog clings to your skin like damp wool, thick with the stench of chamber pots, rotting fish, and soot. Rats scurry under your boots, and somewhere nearby a man coughs up something wet and heavy. You haven't even made it past the bakery, and already your eyes water, not from joy, but from the acrid smoke belching out of the chimneys, mixed with the scent of unwashed bodies, packed shoulder to shoulder in tenements, built for 10, but crammed with 30. If you thought medieval hygiene had a quaint candlelit charm, you're in for a rude awakening. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Drop it in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself waking up in a straw-stuffed mattress, crawling with lice, the blanket stiff with sweat from nights past. There's no running water, no soap, no toothbrush. The concept of a daily wash, absurd. Instead, your morning routine consists of splashing your face with whatever rainwater was collected in a wooden bucket overnight. And if you're lucky, it hasn't been used by the neighbor to rinse out a pot of offal or worse. But you're not a noble. You're a regular townsperson, perhaps apprenticed to a blacksmith or selling onions in the market. That means you don't have access to the few bathhouses the city still permits, since they're either expensive or now considered suspicious dens of sin. Ever since the church began associating bathing with lust and vanity, the public bathhouse, once a thriving Roman import, started shutting down. Cleanliness, ironically, became morally questionable. So instead, you live among the filth. Your neighbors dump their chamber pots right into the street. And on warmer days, the sun stews the waste into a noxious broth that runs downhill into the open gutter. You get used to stepping over slick brown streams and dodging the splash when someone upstairs decides to toss out their night water without warning. The sound of it hitting cobblestone is unmistakable, and you learn to listen for it. You smell. Everyone does. Your linen shirt hasn't been washed in weeks, and your hair is slick with grease. You've never seen a toothbrush, let alone a bar of soap. The closest you get to deodorant is rubbing rosemary or sage into your armpits if you can find some, and if you're feeling fancy. And yet no one bats an eye. You're not unhygienic. You're just normal. Everyone reeks, so no one notices. Well, almost no one. There's a silent hierarchy of scent. Nobles who live in stone keeps far from the chaos of the town, mask their natural odor with perfumes and dried herbs stitched into their clothing. You might catch a whiff of lavender as one of them rides by on horseback, noses turned up at the fetid stew of humanity they pass. They believe themselves cleaner, but in truth many rarely bathe more than a few times a year, if that. Instead, they change their linen undergarments and assume the fabric draws out impurities. It's a laughable theory, but they cling to it like gospel. As you shuffle down the street toward the market, you pass a barber-surgeon's stall. Outside hangs a bloodied bowl and a stained cloth fluttering gently in the breeze. Here you could get your hair trimmed, your teeth yanked out, or maybe a nice bleeding if your humors are misaligned. Hygiene in this world is not a matter of cleanliness, but of balance, according to the learned men of medicine. They don't advise you to wash your hands, but they will tell you to avoid a cold bath after eating fish during a waning moon. You reach the market, and the air isn't much better. The fishmonger's stall reeks of yesterday's catch laid out on warm wooden planks buzzing with flies. There's a butcher nearby, his apron soaked through flies gathering where blood has dried in the folds. You notice the butcher never washes his hands, just wipes them on his apron between carving the meat and handling the coins. No one complains. Germ theory won't exist for another few centuries, so no one even thinks about bacteria. The bad smells, that's miasma foul air that brings disease. People genuinely believe that if it stinks, it makes you sick. Which ironically is sort of true, but not in the way they think. You grab your onions and start back home, avoiding the man in the alley vomiting into the gutter. He's probably got the flux, something between food poisoning and dysentery. You make a mental note not to buy from the tavern where he was last seen drinking. Still, your choices are limited. Everyone's food is handled with unwashed hands, cooked in filthy pots and served in communal wooden bowls that rarely see more than a rinse in dirty water. Even the local well is suspect. It's downhill from a cemetery. But water's water. You either drink it or go thirsty. Later that evening, you light a tallow candle and settle in for the night. Your home is made of wattle and daubwood straw and mud. It breathes, but it also stinks. Smoke from your hearth lingers in the air since your one tiny window doesn't open. And the animals, they live here too. Chickens under the table. A goat in the corner. Maybe a piglet or two snoring near the hearth. Their droppings are swept out daily, or at least every few days, but the scent never leaves. You sit on your stool, pick at your skin absently, and scratch at the lice behind your ear. Fleas are worse at night. You'll sleep in your clothes again and wake up scratching. You dream of a bath, an actual bath with clean water and maybe a bar of soap. But when you do get to wash, it's in a shared wooden tub. You boil water over the hearth, fill the tub, and everyone in the family takes turns. The oldest goes first, the youngest last. By the end, the water is more grime than liquid, and if you go last, you're stepping into a brown stew of sweat, dirt, and hair. It's technically a bath, but it doesn't feel like one. You've heard that in other parts of Europe, people bathe more regularly. Places like Moorish Spain, where bathhouses still thrive and washing is considered both a physical and spiritual act. But here in your town, it's not that way. Here, hygiene is suspicious. Washing too much makes people talk. What are you trying to prove, they whisper? Or worse, are you hiding something? So you stop trying. You embrace the stink. After all, it's better than being accused of vanity or witchcraft. And as you blow out your candle and lie down on your lice-ridden mattress, once again, you realize you've made it through another day. You didn't get sick. You didn't get accused. You just smelled like everyone else. Like a corpse, maybe, but one more day alive. Tomorrow, of course, might be different. The morning sun slices through the crack in your shutter, pulling you back to consciousness with the same thick, greasy air you fell asleep in. The straw under you is damp again. Your skin itches where the lice fed overnight, and there's a fresh line of flea bites along your ankle. You kick off the scratchy blanket and rub your eyes with the back of your sleeve, trying not to gag at the sour smell of your own breath. There's no such thing as mouthwash. You chew a sprig of mint if you can find one, or maybe some fennel seeds, but more often you just live with it. Everyone else does. Your chamber pot filled to the brim is the first task of the day. You carry it to the window and toss the contents into the street below. You don't shout a warning. No one does anymore. It's just expected. Down it goes, splashing into the filth river that winds lazily along the cobblestones. If someone's walking by, that's their bad luck. In fact, you've learned not to wear good shoes when walking near buildings, if you even have good shoes. Most people go barefoot, or wear wooden clogs caked in layers of dried mud, and worse. You head to the communal courtyard where the well sits like a relic from a cleaner age. There's a queue already, mothers with empty jugs, children with buckets, older men, spitting phlegm into the dirt as they wait. The well water is cool and brackish, and you try not to think about what's upstream. Rats often fall in, and no one has the means to fish them out quickly. Still, it's better than drinking from the river. The river at this point is a roiling snake of excrement and rot. And yet some still wash their clothes there, beating them against rocks, the suds barely disguising the murk around them. Clothes washing is a ritual of desperation. You only do it when absolutely necessary, because soap is expensive and rare. When available, it's usually made from animal fat and ashes, soft, greasy stuff that doesn't smell pleasant, but gets the job done sort of. You wash your shirt in cold water, scrub it until your knuckles bleed, and hang it on a line to dry, hoping it doesn't rain and that no thief nabs it. Clothes are precious. Most people only have 1 or 2 sets worn until threadbare, patched repeatedly, then eventually turned into rags. A clean shirt doesn't make you clean, though. You still haven't bathed. Not properly. Not in weeks. When you do bathe, it's a planned event. You boil water over a fire, an hour's labor for just enough to fill a third of a wooden tub. You mix it with cold, step in carefully, and lower yourself into a lukewarm soup of your own filth. No soap, just water. You scrub with your hands or a bit of cloth. If you're lucky, someone traded you a chunk of coarse salt or old rye bread for a handful of lavender, and you scatter that in the bath for the illusion of freshness. It doesn't last. By nightfall, you're sweating again, crawling with fleas, your skin coated in the fine dust of street life. But bathing is risky too. People say it opens your pores, makes you vulnerable. There are tales of men who bathed too often and fell sick, even died. Cold water especially is feared. Better to sweat and stink than risk a sudden chill that leads to a coughing fit and then to death. You remember old Marek who soaked in a stream on a hot day, then died 2 weeks later, chest rattling like a broken bellows. Everyone said the bath killed him. No one blamed the air in his hovel or the lice that burrowed into his scalp. Instead of bathing, people turned to superstition. Carry a pomander, an apple-shaped ball filled with herbs and spices. Hang a posy of thyme by your bed. Burn juniper in your fireplace. All these are meant to ward off disease by purifying the air. Because if something smells nice, it must be clean. Right. That's what the nobles believe. You catch sight of one as you walk to the guild hall, a lady riding in a litter carried by 4 sweating men, her skirts fluffed with perfumed sachets, her gloves scented with ambergris. She hasn't bathed in months, but you wouldn't know it. Her hair is powdered and her gown lined with fur. Beneath it, though, is the same grimy truth, sweat old skin, and the slow rot of never washing. Only difference is she can afford to hide it. Your path takes you past a churchyard, and the smell hits you like a wall. The dead lie shallow beneath the earth, and when the rain comes, heavy parts of them rise again, bones sometimes, or the sweet, sick stink of decomposition. Gravediggers are feared not because of ghosts, but because they reek of the grave. They work with the dead, and people believe that scent clings to the soul. You hold your breath as you pass. The priest swings his censer during Mass, filling the church with frankincense. Not for beauty, for masking. 1,000 unwashed bodies pressed into pews, shoulder to shoulder, breathing, coughing, scratching. The incense is the only thing standing between worship and vomit. You sit quietly through the service, surrounded by the smell of bodies, musty wool, greasy hair, and the sour tang of anxiety. You've long stopped noticing it. But every now and then, when a breeze stirs the hem of your tunic, you catch a whiff of yourself and think, maybe today I'll wash. You won't. There's no time. There's no soap. There's no point. You walk home by twilight, through alleyways where the stench thickens as the sun fades. Nighttime brings different smells, urine-spilled ale, overripe waste, sweat from evening labor. In the dark, the rats emerge again, fat and bold. They dart under doorways, scale walls, gnaw at wooden beams. You hear a scream nearby, a woman's voice, and you don't stop. Could be a rat. Could be worse. Either way, it's none of your business. At home, your feet ache. You peel off your shoes if you're wearing any, and notice the sores along your heel raw from days of walking. You soak them in tepid water. It turns pink. You ignore it. Your mattress is no cleaner than before. You pluck out a beetle and flick it toward the corner. Someone's snoring already, their mouth open, lips caked in grime. You lie back, scratch your scalp, and drift into a restless sleep. The last thing you smell before sleep isn't roses or lavender or even stale bread. It's you. Always you. And it's only going to get worse. You wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding. For a moment you don't know why. Then you hear it, the low rustle of something in the corner, the rapid tapping of claws on wood. Rats. Again. You curl up tighter, pulling your tunic over your legs. The darkness is thick, oppressive. No lantern, no soft light to chase away the shadows. Only the weak orange glow from the hearth's dying embers and the stench, always the stench. There's a strange comfort in it now. The sour, heavy musk of humanity. The sweat, the smoke, the slow decomposition of everything around you. You know this air. It's the same air you've breathed every day since birth. But the rats, that's different. One skitters across your foot, and you jolt upright, heartbeat thundering in your chest. You grope for a stick beside the bed and swing it into the dark. A squeal, then silence. You listen for more. Nothing. Just the sound of your own breathing. You slump back down and try to sleep again, but the spell is broken. And besides, you've got work to do at dawn. When morning comes, you rise groggy and sore. Your knees crack, your back aches. Your skin is oily, tacky to the touch. The grime of days past has built into a sort of second skin. You rub at your arms and watch dead skin flake off like ash. You scratch your scalp and come away with a fingernail full of something you'd rather not identify. It's no wonder lice thrive here. The children in your household are worse off. Their faces are crusted with dirt and dried mucus, their fingers black under the nails. You try your best to wipe them down with a damp cloth, but it's never enough. No one expects it to be. If they grow old enough to clean themselves, that will be considered a triumph. You leave the house and step into the street. It's not raining, but the road is slick anyway, coated in a thin film of filth. A dog trots past with a rotting chicken wing in its mouth. You avoid a puddle that probably isn't water and make your way toward the tannery. The tanners are the dirtiest of all. You can smell the place before you see it, raw hides soaked in urine, lime, and animal brains. The stench is eye-watering, but they do essential work. Without them, there'd be no leather for shoes or belts or armor. The price, of course, is the filth. Workers spend their days waist-deep in vats of chemical soup, their hands permanently stained and calloused. Some have open sores that never heal. Others lose fingers to the blades used for scraping hides. All of them smell like death itself. You pass them quickly, holding your breath, though you know it doesn't matter. The air is heavy with rot, and there's no escape. Further along near the edge of town is the dyer's yard. Large vats of colored water steam gently as workers stir them with long poles. The colors are brilliant deep indigos, rich crimsons, sharp yellows, but the dyes are made with toxic substances. Alumni, even arsenic. No gloves, no masks. The workers breathe it in every day, every hour. Their hands are blistered, stained blue or red or yellow, their lungs ruined before they hit 40. And yet they continue because dyed cloth is valuable, because the nobles demand color. You reach the smithy, your place of work, and step into the heat and hammering noise. It's filthy, but in a different way, soot-blackened walls, metal filings underfoot, the air hot and dry. You sweat instantly. The salt stings your eyes, and you wipe your brow on your sleeve, adding another layer of grime to your already stiff tunic. The other apprentices look much the same, grimy faces, greasy hair, the occasional burn mark or bandaged hand. Your master doesn't believe in washing. Water's for fish, he jokes, wiping his hands on his apron before shoving a loaf of bread into his mouth. You nod and smile because the joke is older than the anvil and still told every morning. You work through the day barely stopping to eat. There's no break to wash hands before meals. Bread and cheese go straight from hand to mouth. You've grown accustomed to the crunch of grit between your teeth. If you get sick, you get sick. Most people do eventually. By evening, your face is caked in soot, your fingernails rimmed with black. You smell like iron and fire and old sweat. You shuffle home exhausted, rubbing your aching shoulders, passing a woman sweeping feces from her doorway with a handful of reeds. The sweepings go into the street gutter, where they join everything else. The gutter, by the way, runs right past the baker's door. You'd think that might deter customers, but no one mentions it. Everyone's used to it. The baker's hands are as unwashed as yours, but the bread is warm and you gladly trade a coin for a round loaf on the way home. You tear off a piece and chew eyes on the road, dodging a beggar covered in open sores. Leprosy. You've seen it before. Some towns have colonies outside the walls, where the sick are sent to die in peace, but many still wander the streets, heads, covered faces, rotting behind cloth. The smell gives them away before you even look. A mix of decay and oozing flesh. You try not to stare. You try not to breathe. Home again. You duck into your hovel, bolt the door behind you. The hearth is warm and the stew has been simmering all day, a thick sludge of barley onions and maybe meat if someone found any. You eat straight from the pot with a wooden spoon darkened by years of use. No one washes it. Not really. Maybe a rinse, maybe a scrape. You're too tired to care. Later, as night falls and the fire dims, you try to clean yourself just a little. You take a cloth, dip it in tepid water, and rub your face and armpits. It's not much, but it helps. You think maybe you smell slightly less than before. Then you catch the scent rising from your bedding. Never mind. You lie down, wrap your cloak around you, and close your eyes. The rats return. The lice tickle your neck. You drift off, nose full of ash dirt and the lingering scent of your own existence. Sleep well. You'll need the rest. Tomorrow promises more of the same. The roosters begin their chorus before the sun breaks the horizon, and you groan as you rise, scratching at a fresh patch of bites along your waist. The night brought little relief, only more sweat and more scratching. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and immediately regret it. The floor is cold and damp, and your toes press into something squishy. You don't bother to investigate. It could be a bit of rotten food, a puddle from the leaking roof, or something far worse. Either way, it's just another morning in a medieval home. You dress in yesterday's tunic, your only tunic, and cinch it with the same scratchy wool belt that leaves an itchy ring around your waist. A waft of your own scent hits your nose as you lift your arms. It's a pungent blend of sour sweat smoke and the earthy tang of unwashed flesh. You grimace, then shrug. There's no help for it. No fresh clothes, no hot shower. You toss a splash of cold water onto your face and call it a wash. You check on your children if you have any left. Childhood mortality is a quiet plague. The youngest is wheezing in her sleep, sticky-eyed and hot to the touch. You wipe her brow with a damp cloth and say a silent prayer. She makes it to spring. Illness moves like a whisper through homes like yours. It starts with a cough or fever, spreads by touch, by air, by breath. Hygiene, or lack thereof, is the silent killer, but no one knows that. They blame bad air, sinful living, or the will of God. Out on the street, the day begins again with the sound of waste splashing into the gutter. Someone's dumping their pot a little too casually, and it splatters dangerously close to your shoes. You sidestep, tug your hood over your head, and keep walking. You head for your friend Martin's house today. He's a cooper, and you owe him help in exchange for repairs on your water barrel. He's already hard at work when you arrive bare-chested and sweating over the iron hoops that hold the barrels tight. The smell of sweat, sawdust, and sour ale clings to him like a second skin. You exchange greetings without a handshake. People don't touch much these days. Not just because of dirt, but because sickness has made everyone suspicious. Martin's wife hands you a cup of something warm. You hope it's beer. It might be broth. You drink anyway. The cup hasn't been cleaned. You can feel the crust around the rim with your lips, but you don't comment. She offers you a heel of bread and a wedge of cheese, and you eat gratefully, brushing away the mouse droppings before each bite. You're lucky to have food at all. The town crier passes by not long after shouting the news of the day such as it is. Word of a fever spreading through the eastern quarter. People whisper about it in the background, but no one changes their habits. How could they? Washing your hands isn't something anyone does unless you've been gutting animals or working with dye. Even then, it's often just a rinse in a bucket of dirty water used by everyone. You've used that same water to clean tools, feet, dishes, even wounds. Sometimes you think about wounds, how they fester, how they stink. You remember your cousin's foot. After he cut it on a nail, it turned black and oozed. They tried boiling herbs, chanting prayers, even bleeding him to balance his humors. None of it worked. He died screaming, and the smell lingered for days. They burned his mattress. Not to stop disease, just because it stank too much. Later in the day, you pass a laundry line stretched between two buildings, dripping with clothes stiff from drying. It's a rare sight. Washing clothes is labor-intensive and expensive. The woman scrubbing at the tub has red cracked hands and a look of quiet rage on her face. She's probably been scrubbing since dawn. The soap she's using is homemade animal fat wood ash and a bit of lye. It burns the skin and smells like wet fireplace mixed with pig grease. Still, it's better than nothing. But don't mistake the presence of water for cleanliness. Most homes don't have running water. You carry it from wells or streams, sometimes from rain barrels. It's heavy, it sloshes, and it's rarely clear. You drink it, wash with it, cook with it, all from the same wooden bucket. Sometimes moss grows on the inside. Sometimes bugs drown in it. You pick them out and go on with your day. The poor don't own bathtubs. At best, you share a wooden basin the size of a wine barrel. You squat in it, knees drawn to your chest, and someone pours tepid water over your back. Maybe you scrub with a cloth, maybe not. If you're in a family, you take turns. First the father, then the sons, then the mother, then the daughters. By the end, the water is thick gray and sour, and it's better than nothing. Soap is a luxury. Most villagers don't use it regularly. The lucky ones might trade for a rough block from the monastery, a mix of tallow ash and herbs. It doesn't lather. It's not fragrant, but it gets some of the grime off if you scrub hard enough. Mostly people rely on dry wiping, brushing themselves with straw or stiff cloth, or scraping off dirt with dull knives or shards of pottery. You remember an old woman who used to sweep herself with a bundle of dried twigs starting from her shoulders all the way down. Brush away the devil, she used to say. She believed dirt was spiritual, not just physical. In a way, she was right. In this world, dirt isn't just what's under your nails, it's a reflection of your poverty, your desperation, your inability to escape. By nightfall, you're back home, your back aching from a full day's labor. You consider washing your feet, they hurt the most. But the water is cold, and your bucket is nearly empty. You decide to wait till tomorrow. You sit with your family by the hearth, sharing what little you have. The stew tastes the same as it always does, onions, cabbage, maybe a bone for flavor. You pick something out of your bowl and try not to think about it. There's no point worrying. You've eaten worse. The baby starts to cry again, her fever hasn't broken. You rock her gently and feel her forehead. Too hot. You know what's coming, but you don't say it. You just hold her close and let the night settle in. You lie down once more, wrapped in the same blanket, surrounded by the same unwashed walls, breathing the same musty air. You think briefly about the bathhouses of the past, the Roman ones with running water and hot steam-scented oils and smooth marble. They say people used to bathe every day. Can you imagine every single day? You try, but it feels like a fairy tale. Here in your world, the only thing that runs daily is the filth in the gutters. And you've long since stopped noticing. Your baby died at dawn. She was still warm when you found her curled like a kitten in the crook of your arm, her tiny hands clenched and face pale beneath a smear of soot on her cheek. You sat there for a while, not speaking, not crying, just staring at her little body and listening to the outside world continue as if nothing had happened. As if this didn't happen to someone in every street every day. There are no clean linens to wrap her in. Only the same cloths you use for everything, eating, cleaning, bleeding. You choose the one with the fewest stains. You wash her body as best you can, using what's left in the water barrel, but the water is gritty, speckled with ash and bits of straw. She deserves more, but this is the best you can do. You clean the dirt from her fingers. You wipe the mucus from her nose. She still smells like a child, milk, sweat, and smoke. You hand her over to the priest by midday. He blesses her quickly, eyes already flicking to the next mourner in line. There are no coffins, not for the poor, just a burial shroud and a hole in the ground. And she'll be buried shallow in the common pit. You know the rain will churn the soil, and you dread what that means. But there is nothing else. When you return home, the silence in the house is crushing. You notice the smell first, how her absence sharpens everything else. The sourness of the unwashed clothes, the rot of leftover stew, the stagnant tang of water in the corner barrel. You start to clean because it's something to do. You sweep the floor, wipe down the table, scrub at a stain on the wall that never really comes out. But no matter how much you scrub, the smell never leaves. It's in the walls, in the beams, in you. By mid-afternoon, your neighbor Greta stops by. She's brought a little bundle of herbs, rosemary and hyssop. You thank her, and she nods solemnly. She's lost 3 children. She hangs the herbs near your hearth, and for a moment, the air smells different, brighter, cleaner. But it fades quickly. The smoke returns. The grief lingers. You think again of cleanliness, of what it really means here. It isn't about health. It's not about looking neat. It's a luxury, a privilege, a whisper of dignity. The wealthy soak in tubs of heated water poured by servants and scented with oils imported from distant lands. You boil water in a battered kettle, kneel beside a wash tub, and bathe one limb at a time if there's time, if there's fuel, if there's not 100 other things more urgent than your skin. The irony is that the plague, when it comes, doesn't care about soap. It sweeps through towns clean or dirty, rich or poor. But people still point fingers. They blame the filth. They say it's because people don't wash, don't change their clothes, don't air their homes. And in truth, the filth does help it along. The rats, the fleas, the sores that never heal. You don't know this yet, no one does, but the enemy lives in the dirt, in the blood, in the air you breathe. And so people begin to panic. In some towns, they chase down bathhouse workers and accuse them of spreading disease through steam and sorcery. In others, they burn down the homes of the sick, thinking fire will purify the street. They close churches, outlaw markets, ban handshakes. But no one washes more. They just carry more herbs, wear bigger cloaks, and walk faster past the gutters. You've heard stories from merchants returning from the south tales of cities where people wear strange masks with long beaks filled with lavender and camphor. They say it blocks out the death smell, keeps the plague away. Maybe it works. Maybe not. You'll probably never find out. Today you focus on your own small corner of the world. You take down your shirt and brush it clean with a stiff broom. There's no washing it now, not in winter. The stream is frozen and the well water is too precious. You scrape the collar with a knife and shake out the straw. It's still stiff with sweat. Still carries your scent. But it looks a little better. Maybe that's enough. You comb your hair with a bone comb and wince at the knots. The lice flee as you pull them out. You crush them between your thumbnails and toss them into the fire. Pop. Pop. You whisper a little curse under your breath for each one. It feels good. Like fighting back. The house still stinks, but now it stinks less of grief and more of life again. Smoke, sweat, the faint trace of herbs. You lay out the stale bread and the pot of cold pottage. You eat in silence, tearing the bread slowly, listening to the fire crackle. When the pot is empty, you don't bother cleaning it. The crust will be scraped off in the morning. Later, as night falls, you light a candle stub and sit on the edge of your bed. You rub your feet, massaging the blisters peeling off your socks. They reek. They always do. But there's no soap, no water, no help for it. You rinse them in a basin and dry them on the corner of your cloak. You do what you can. You think again of what it would mean to be truly clean. Not just scrubbed with a cloth, but clean like the stories say, bathed in warm water, scented, dressed in fresh linens, sleeping between white sheets, under a roof that doesn't leak in a room without rats or fleas. You've never had that. Not once. Not even close. But still, you try. Tomorrow maybe you'll sweep again. Boil your shirt. Trade for soap. Hang herbs. Catch fewer lice. Maybe. Maybe not. But tonight you sleep. Still smelling faintly of grief, of labor, of wood smoke and old sweat. Still human. Still here. You're dreaming of rain when the sound of a distant shout jolts you awake. For a moment, you're not sure if it's morning or not. The candle stub burned out hours ago, and the hearth has gone cold. You strain your ears, there it is again. Someone yelling in the street, then a crash followed by the low wail of a woman. Another death, or maybe a drunken brawl, or both. You shift on the mattress, trying to find a patch that isn't damp. The smell of mildew rises from the straw, sharp and earthy. You curl up again, pulling your cloak over your shoulders. The lice are already awake. You feel them moving tiny legs skating across your scalp. You scratch without thinking. The skin behind your ears is raw from nights like this. When light finally begins to seep through the warped wooden shutter, you sit up and stretch. Your joints ache more than they used to. It's the cold. It settles in your bones like a curse. You shuffle to the hearth, poke at the ashes, and blow gently until a few red coals flicker back to life. You feed them dry kindling, careful not to waste too much. Firewood costs coin, and you've got less of that than ever. You glance at the corner barrel. The water's low. A film floats on the surface, bits of bark maybe, or something less innocent. You scoop a little in your hands and splash it on your face. It smells metallic and musty. You gag quietly, but keep splashing. It's your only option. Today you're headed to the baker's oven not for bread, but to trade labor. You'll help clean out the soot and scrape the floor, and in return, maybe you'll get a warm loaf or a handful of grain. You tie up your cloak and make your way through the alleyways, the chill air cutting through the holes in your shoes. The streets are quieter now. Fewer people about. Some are ill. Some gone. The fever that's been whispered about has reached your quarter. You can feel it like a storm pressing down. Doors are marked with chalk. You don't know if it's a warning or a farewell. When you arrive at the baker's, the smell of burnt flour hits you like a slap. It's stronger than usual, more acrid. The ovens haven't been properly scraped in weeks. You set to work with a flat iron scraper crouched on your knees, hacking at the hardened crust that lines the stone floor. Soot stains your fingers, gets into your nose, settles behind your eyes. You sweat despite the cold and wipe your brow with your sleeve. The motion spreads ash across your forehead. You look like a coal miner or a corpse prepared for burial. You keep working. The baker offers you a hard crust and a smear of goose fat at mid-morning. You eat without complaint, chewing slowly, careful of your molars. One is loose already. There's no dentist here. If it falls out, it falls out. If it rots in your jaw, well, that's a different kind of pain. You know what infection smells like. You've smelled it in others, an oily, sickly sweet odor that clings to cloth and lingers in closed rooms. You've smelled it in open wounds, in rotting limbs, in the breath of those on death's edge. It's unforgettable. You hope you never smell it in your own body. After work, you pass by the well, and you notice something new. A man with a cart has stopped nearby. He's selling miracle vinegar, a mixture of wine and herbs that he claims can ward off all illness. People crowd around, offering coins, eggs, bits of bread. Desperate. You watch him sprinkle the stuff on a rag and sniff it theatrically. He doesn't flinch. But then again, he's selling it. He can't afford to. You remember something your grandmother said once: if it smells clean, it's not. She was talking about quick fixes, about perfumes and powders used to hide deeper rot. She scrubbed floors with salt-burned juniper when someone coughed and dunked her feet in vinegar every night. She still died in the second wave of fever, but she lived longer than most. As you walk home, a wind picks up, blowing dust and waste into the air. You pull your hood low and squint against the gusts. The gutters overflow with runoff, brown, bubbling, reeking. The waste of the whole town funneled into narrow channels that choke and clog with every storm. Children play nearby barefoot, laughing, splashing in the muck. You want to yell at them, but what's the point? You did the same when you were their age. Everyone does. Until they learn. You reach your door, duck inside, and bolt it behind you. The warmth is minimal, but it's better than the wind. You light the hearth again and sit close, fingers outstretched. Your hands are black with soot and grime, but you barely notice. You try to remember the last time you truly felt clean. Not just less dirty, but clean. It's a difficult memory to conjure. You scrape the dirt from under your nails with the tip of a bone needle, and you find dried blood under one. You don't know whose. Maybe yours. Maybe not. You heat a little water, barely enough to fill a small bowl, and soak a cloth. You wash your arms one at a time, then your face, then your neck. You stop at your chest. The rest is too cold. Too much effort. You wring out the cloth and hang it by the fire. It'll be stiff by morning. You prepare your evening meal, a scrap of cabbage, a heel of bread, a bit of gruel you'd rather not identify. It's warm, at least. You eat in silence, watching the fire flicker in the corner of your eye. Later, as the sky darkens, the street outside echoes with coughing and the creak of cartwheels. Someone's being taken to the sick house. You recognize the voice Elric the Weaver from 2 doors down. His cough started last week. You wonder if he'll return. You doubt it. You lie down on your bedding, pull the blanket over your shoulders, and try to breathe through your mouth. The stink of the world still clings to your hair, your skin, your clothes. But you're used to it now. You can't imagine life without it. And so you sleep, not clean, not safe, but still alive. And in this world, that's something close to a miracle. The next morning starts with silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, breath-holding kind that settles over a town when something has shifted. You open your eyes to a cold room and a faint light filtering through the shutter. You listen. No footsteps, no dogs barking, no shouting vendors, just the occasional rustle of wind and the eerie creak of timber shifting in its joints. You step outside into a street that feels wrong. It's not empty exactly, but the usual rhythm is missing. Fewer people, fewer voices. and a smell that makes your stomach clench, acrid, metallic, and strange. It's not the rot you've grown accustomed to. This is different. This is the smell of fever. You see a body near the gutter, partially covered with a wool blanket. No one approaches. The cloth is soaked through from the night's rain, clinging to the curve of the spine beneath. You don't look at the face. You don't want to know if it's someone you recognize. You continue walking your steps slower now. Every doorway has a story. Some are shuttered tight, others marked with bundles of dried herbs pinned above the lintel sage, rosemary, garlic. People believe these herbs protect them, that they purify the air. You remember hanging a sprig of hyssop by your own door not long ago. It's brown and crumbling now, forgotten in its twine. The town has changed, fast, and everyone knows why. A sickness has taken hold. Some say it started in the southern markets carried by ships filled with spices and silks. Others blame the beggars, or the Jews, or the bathhouses, or the sinners. Always someone to blame. But the truth, as far as anyone can tell, is that the disease floats in the air, rides on breath, clings to clothing. It's in the dirt, the filth, the unwashed bodies packed into two small homes. And now the fear is stronger than the stench. You pass a man washing the street with buckets of water mixed with vinegar. He sloshes the liquid over the cobblestones and scrubs with a froid tied to a stick. The vinegar smell burns your nose. He says nothing. Just scrubs and scrubs until the stones shine pink and wet. As if he could wash away the sickness. As if the street itself could be made clean. You reach the market square and see a crowd gathered standing far apart, arms crossed, scarves tied over mouths. A priest stands on the steps of the well shouting something about sin, about penance. He waves a wooden cross and swings a censer filled with smoke that drifts over the heads of the silent watchers. The smell of incense mingles with the sharper stink of sweat and sickness, creating a cloud that stings your eyes. The priest urges everyone to fast, to pray, to cleanse their souls since they clearly can't cleanse their bodies. You look around and see nodding heads. No one suggests soap. No one suggests clean water or separation or sanitation. The body doesn't matter here, only the soul. But the disease doesn't seem to care about the difference. You slip away quietly. Back through the alleys, past the tannery closed, now the workers vanished. The air is still thick with old hide and urine, but the worst of it has faded. You pass the dyer's yard, empty the vats covered. The colored water inside has begun to grow scum. You wonder how many more will leave, how many will die. At home, the water barrel is nearly dry. You decide to fetch more before evening. The well is close, but it's crowded now, and people are jumpy. You bring your bucket and keep your eyes down. You wait your turn, avoiding conversation. When your hands touch the rope, you can feel the residue from the dozens of hands before yours greasy, grimy, sticky with sweat. You pull the bucket up slowly, muscles straining. The water sloshes and spills over the edge. It's murky, flecked with grit. Still, it's what you've got. You walk home careful not to spill more. Every drop is precious now. You think about boiling it, but that means using firewood, and firewood is low. You use a scrap of cloth to filter the worst of the floating bits, then set the barrel in the shade. You breathe a little easier just knowing it's there. Later that day, you hear singing in the distance, a slow, mournful chant rising and falling in waves. You step outside and see a group moving down the main road. They wear rough white robes and hoods. Some are barefoot. Some carry wooden crosses. All are bloody. They're beating themselves with cords, the lashes cutting into their backs. You've heard of them flagellants. They believe pain will cleanse the soul, drive out the plague. They march from town to town, singing and bleeding, leaving silence behind them. You stand still watching them pass. They don't speak. They don't smell like saints. They smell like men, sweat, blood, dirt. Their robes are stained, their hair matted. They haven't bathed. No one has. They only suffer, and everyone watches. You go back inside and sit by your hearth. You stir your evening stew and try not to think about the body in the street. You chew your bread slowly, grateful it's warm. You clean your bowl with the edge of your cloak. As night falls, you light a candle and wipe your hands with a cloth soaked in vinegar. The smell lingers in your skin, sharp, sour, strange. But it's the closest thing to clean you've felt in days. You press the cloth to your face, breathe in deeply, and close your eyes. You pray not for a bath, not for sweet-smelling herbs or fresh linen, but just for one more morning where you wake up breathing. And you know deep down that even if you do, the world outside will smell a little worse, a little heavier, but you'll walk into it anyway. Because what choice do you have? The morning air is thick and gray, carrying the scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and something else, something cloying like spoiled meat. You know what that means. Somewhere nearby, someone has died and no one has come to collect the body. The dead pile up faster than the living can dig. You sit up slowly. Your bones protest, your spine feels twisted from another night on straw. The blanket slides off your shoulder, and with it comes the stiff chill of early spring. You rub your eyes and scratch the crust from the corners. There's a new rash spreading along your forearm. You don't know what it is. Maybe nothing. Maybe something. You wrap a strip of cloth around it and move on. Outside, the street is strangely quiet again. Not silent, but hushed, as though the buildings themselves are holding their breath. You see fewer faces at the windows. Curtains remain drawn. Doors stay bolted. Even the stray dogs, usually bold in the morning light, skulk along the walls with ears low and tails tucked. You make your way to the church. Not for Mass, there hasn't been one in a week, but to see if they're still giving out bread. The steps are crowded with the sick and the starving, all hunched and shivering, waiting for a crumb or a prayer. The priest stands high above, nose covered, holding a crucifix like a weapon. He doesn't touch anyone. He barely looks. A deacon hands down bits of stale crust and dried peas tossed into outstretched aprons and hats as though feeding animals. You receive your ration and back away without a word. You keep your eyes low, not out of shame, but because looking too closely at anyone's face now is a gamble. Red cheeks, swollen eyes, black spots. These are the signs. You learn to scan and keep moving. You pass the bathhouse on the way home, not open, of course. It hasn't been for months. Its door is boarded, the windows dark. Once it was a place of comfort. Steam-rising water warmed over open flames, people laughing and chatting as they scrubbed away the filth of daily life. Now it's feared. Rumors say water spreads disease, that steam carries spirits, that cleanliness invites the devil. You don't know what's true anymore, but no one dares to bathe. Instead, people try other methods. You hear about a man who burned rosemary in every room of his house for a week. He still died. Another soaked in vinegar twice a day. Died. A merchant's wife wore nothing but lavender-filled robes and kissed no one for 3 months. She lived. People say it was the herbs. Others say she bribed death. You try your best. You carry a pouch of dried marjoram and mint. You breathe through cloth soaked in bitter wine. You hang garlic near your door. But your home still stinks of sweat, old wood, and fear. You return to your hovel and see that someone's been inside. Nothing's taken, but you see a shift in the dust, a smear on the doorframe. Someone else seeking food or shelter. Or maybe they just needed to sit. The poor move like ghosts now. You don't begrudge them. Inside you warm the last of your stew. It's more water than substance, but it goes down hot, and that counts for something. You dip your fingers in a bowl to wash them, then wipe them dry on your clothes. It leaves smudges, but what does that matter? The clothes haven't been properly cleaned in weeks. No soap, no time, no point. You sit by the fire listening. The town bell rings once, a funeral, then again, another, then silence. Your thoughts drift to a story you once heard as a child, about a queen who bathed in milk every morning, whose skin was so clean it glowed. You imagined her reclining in a silver tub, attendants pouring warm water over her back, brushing her hair with ivory combs. It seemed like magic, like another world. Now you know the truth. Even the nobles rarely bathe. They pour perfume over filth, rub themselves with powders, change their linens often, and believe it makes them pure. But they are no cleaner than you, only better hidden. You once heard a noblewoman explain that washing too often opened the pores and let evil spirits in, that to scrub the body was to offend its natural balance, and so she did not wash. But she changed her dress daily and dabbed her wrists with oils. She still reeked, but no one told her so. The poor have no such illusions. You get up and begin your evening ritual. You strip down to your underclothes, stiff with wear, and crouch by the fire. You heat a bowl of water, just enough to wet a cloth. You scrub your face first, then your arms, chest, feet. You use ash from the hearth as an abrasive. It helps remove some of the grease. It leaves your skin dry but marginally cleaner. You dump the bowl outside and watch the water swirl into the mud. The cloth you'll hang to dry. It'll be stiff as leather by morning. You look down at yourself, red skin scratched raw in places, patches of rash bug bites like constellations along your arms. Your fingernails are dark, your feet cracked. You smell less bad, maybe. Not good. Never good. You lay out your bedding and lie down in the semi-darkness. You blow out the candle and let your eyes adjust. You hear a cough outside, a dry, ragged sound. Then a door creaks, then silence again. You wrap your cloak around you tighter and close your eyes. Your dreams come slowly muddled by fatigue and the weight of another day. You dream of water, of a deep lake, clear, still. You sink into it and feel the dirt lift from your body, spiraling away like smoke. You wake with the taste of it on your tongue. But there's no water here, only the heavy scent of morning and the promise of another long, dirty day. You rise before the sun. The air in your home is brittle with cold, your breath visible in pale clouds as you move slowly, stiff from sleep. and aching from the chill. Your shoulders crack as you reach to stretch. The blanket slides off, and you feel the familiar sting of cold on skin that hasn't seen soap or soft linen in weeks. Every crease of your body holds a residue of the days that came before sweat dust and the persistent cling of smoke from the hearth. The scent of yourself hits you before you stand. Sour, earthy rank, but what else is new? Outside the town is still cloaked in half-darkness. The frost clings to the wooden beams of houses and sparkles on the surface of the waste-lined gutters. You throw on your cloak, stiff from dried mud and sweat, and step into the street. A dog rummages through a pile of refuse, growling low. There's no sound of bells, no chatter from the stalls, just the creak of shutters opening and the slow, cautious movements of people beginning another day of survival. You head toward the town edge where the washerwomen sometimes work. They've built a makeshift shelter near the frozen stream using bent wood and old cloth to block the wind. You can see the steam rising from the cauldrons before you even reach them. They boil water in great black pots, stirring with long sticks, hands red from cold and lye. You've come to barter half a sack of wilted onions, a bone with a bit of marrow, anything to have your clothes cleaned. Not new, not mended, just washed. One of the women squints at your offer. She sniffs the onions, shrugs, and gestures to the pile of other garments already soaking. You hand over your shirt and tunic, and she drops them in without ceremony. It'll be hours, maybe longer. You leave wrapped in your outer cloak and the long linen undershift beneath. You already feel the cold soaking in. But something in you shifts. Even just the hope of clean clothes feels like defiance. A tiny strike against the filth clinging to every inch of your life. You pass by the old bathhouse again. The sign is weather-worn and hanging by a single rusted chain. It swings lightly in the wind, creaking like an old man's knees. No one goes near it anymore. You pause, peering into one of the dark windows. Inside, the benches and tubs are still there, coated in a layer of dust. You imagine them filled with water, steam rising, voices echoing. Not the ghostly silence that clings to it now. You continue on, thinking of the stories your grandmother once told about cleanliness. How in her youth she visited a monastery where monks bathed regularly every Friday like a ritual. They believed clean skin pleased God. But that was before the plague, before fear reshaped belief into something colder, more suspicious. Now dirt is more than neglect, it's protection. People believe washing removes a layer of safety, that the body once stripped of its grime becomes porous, exposed to disease. Better to stink and survive, they say. And so they wrap themselves in layers and let the sweat fester underneath. Nobles hide it with lavender, the poor just live with it. You pass a man selling herbs in little bundles tied with twine. He shouts about protection and purity. Keep the plague at bay, he yells. Bundle of thyme and rue, sniff it daily and live. You remember when such things were sold for their flavor. Now they are talismans. You buy one anyway, tucking it inside your cloak. It smells sharp and green. It gives the illusion of cleanliness, and sometimes that's enough. By midday, the town has awakened. More people are in the streets, now moving slowly, carefully. Few talk. No one touches. You make your way back to the washerwomen and are surprised to find your clothes already hanging stiff and steaming on a wooden frame. You thank the woman with a nod and trade the onions without a word. She doesn't look at you. No one looks at anyone anymore. You dress slowly, carefully. The shirt is damp, but the cold doesn't bite as much when you know it's clean. You breathe in deeply. There's no perfume, no sweetness, but the sharp smell of ash, lye, and water is something like hope. You feel lighter, different, almost human. Back at home, you pour the last of your water into a small basin and use what little warmth remains in the coals to heat it slightly. You soak your feet. The relief is instant. They've cracked and bled from days of walking in hardened shoes and filthy streets. The water clouds quickly with dirt. You pat them dry with a clean corner of your cloak and wrap them in cloth. You spend the afternoon sweeping the floor, shaking out the bedding, airing the room as best you can. The wind that rushes through the open door smells like winter and wood smoke, but also decay. Somewhere nearby, someone is burning old clothes, maybe a body. Still you scrub. You toss out the straw from your mattress and lay down a fresh layer. It's coarse and dry, but cleaner. You tuck sprigs of herbs between the wall and your bedding. Not for health, for smell. You boil water for gruel and eat slowly. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve, then remember you're clean. You reach for a rag instead. It's a small thing, but it matters. For a moment you remember who you used to be, or who you hoped to be. As dusk settles, you light a candle and pull your cloak tighter. Your home smells different. Still not fresh. Still not free of rot and smoke. But better. You lie down and close your eyes. Your skin is dry. Your hair is still tangled. But your shirt is clean, your feet are wrapped, and the lice have fled for now. You sleep, and in your dreams you're not just surviving, you're beginning quietly to resist. By morning the lice are back. You feel them before you open your eyes. Tiny feather-light skitters near the nape of your neck crawling across your temple. You don't panic. You don't even flinch. You've accepted them like weather, like cold toes and sour breath. You reach behind your ear and pinch one between your nails. Pop. You flick it into the ashes beside your straw bedding and wipe your fingers on your shirt. The clean shirt you traded food for just yesterday. Already it smells like you again. Still, something about today feels different. You rise with a bit more steadiness in your step. Maybe it's the lingering feeling of clean feet, or the faint smoky scent of the thyme and sage tucked into the folds of your bedding. You pull on your cloak, now stiff where it dried too close to the fire, and tie it tight at the waist. A new day, a new layer of grime. Outside the air is heavy and cold. It sticks in your lungs, damp and close. You cough once, then twice. Just a dry cough. You tell yourself it's nothing. The town is quieter again. The carts aren't rattling past like they used to. Fewer feet on the streets. The butcher's shop is shuttered, and the windows of the cooper's home are boarded from inside. You don't ask questions. You already know the answers. You make your way toward the square where the healers sometimes gather. Not doctors, not in the modern sense, no white robes or clean tools. Just old women with jars of honey and vinegar, men with pouches of roots and rusted knives. They carry bundles of dried herbs or bowls of water in which they float pieces of blessed bread. They speak softly, muttering prayers under their breath. You approach one of them, an old woman with a bent back and fingers like twigs. She squints at you, then gestures for your hands. You show her the rash creeping down your wrist. She pokes at it, sniffs, then opens a pouch and produces a thick salve. It smells of garlic and something sour. She smears it on without ceremony and hands you a sprig of tansy. For your hat, she rasps. Keeps the rot out. You give her a few coins more than it's worth, but not nearly what her gesture deserves. As you leave, you tuck the tansy into your hood. It smells sharp and clean in a wild sort of way. You catch a breath of it as you walk and feel something stir like the first time you washed your face in the well as a child. That small thrill of cold water and a new beginning. It doesn't last, but you hold on to it. The rest of the day is spent scouring tools. Your neighbors, what's left of them, have started preparing for the spring markets, uncertain whether they'll ever reopen. You help a smith grind the rust off a pile of discarded knives. The grit stings, your eyes gets into your teeth. Your hands are black by noon, and your face is streaked with sweat and metal dust. But it feels good. Productive. No one stops to wash. Not really. A rinse from a barrel, a wipe on a sleeve. That's it. The water's too cold anyway, and the firewood too scarce. And yet, in a town sick with fear and decay, even this small motion work purpose feels like defiance. On your way home, you pass the public latrine. It's an open trench surrounded by rough boards and an air of total surrender. The stench hits you like a wall even from a distance. Human waste mingled with mud mold and the remnants of a town that never had the luxury of plumbing. You walk faster. By the time you reach your door, the sky is dimming. Your feet ache. Your back throbs. You light your hearth, careful not to waste more kindling than needed. You boil what little water you have and dip a rag into it. Not for a bath, just for your hands, your face, the back of your neck. You strip off your shirt and scrub under your arms. The cloth comes away brown. You rinse it and do it again. You catch your reflection in the dark glass of the window. It's barely visible, warped and hazy, but you stare anyway. Your skin is rough and raw. Your hair is wild. Your eyes sunken. But your face looks alive. You press the cloth to your cheek and exhale. After dinner bread and weak ale, you tend to your bedding. You shake out the straw again. You sprinkle dried lavender, what little you've saved. You smooth the linen shirt across your chest and fold your arms behind your head. You think of the queen in her milk bath again. You wonder if she dreamed of you just once. Of a poor soul crouched over a basin of cold water, hands red from scrubbing eyes, raw from smoke teeth, on edge from grit. Probably not. But you think of her anyway. You dream again that night. In the dream, you are walking through a garden barefoot, wrapped in linen. There is a stream ahead, and you kneel beside it. You cup the water in your hands and pour it over your head. It is warm, clean, endless. The sun is shining. The air smells of thyme and pine and nothing else. When you wake, it's still dark. Your pillow smells like smoke again. The lice are back, but your hands are still clean. The first thing you notice when you step outside is the sky. It's the kind of gray that doesn't move, thick, heavy, and unmoving, like someone hung a woolen blanket across the heavens. The air presses down on your shoulders, but worse than the weight is the smell. A new one. Rancid, sickly sweet, and unmistakable. Death is near. You follow the scent like a bloodhound, without wanting to nose wrinkled breath held tight. Then you see it. A cart. Wooden iron-rimmed wheels pulled by a single thin ox, its ribs showing beneath matted hair. The driver wears a hood and scarf wrapped so tightly around his face that only his eyes peek through. Behind him, the cart is stacked limbs and torsos wrapped in stained cloth, a mass of humanity bundled like firewood. One hand dangles free fingers blackened at the tips. You step aside. Everyone does. No one speaks. No one dares to look too long. The cart creaks by wheels, groaning in protest, leaving behind a wet trail from the soaked cloth and the fluids beneath. A rat scurries after it, tail twitching. You spit on the ground and keep walking. It's laundry day again, or what passes for it. You've scraped together enough soap, 2 small foul-smelling chunks of animal fat, and ash traded from a wandering tinker for an old belt buckle. You boil water, mixing the soap in until it softens. The smell hits you like a slap, burnt tallow and smoke, but it lathers. That's enough. Your shirt, once white, now a patchy yellow-gray, goes into the pot. You stir it with a stick. Bits of lint float to the surface. You're not sure if they're from the fabric or from your skin. You pour more hot water over it, then beat it gently against a flat stone outside your door. The stone has seen years of this. It's smooth, stained with soap, sweat, and rain. A woman passes by and nods at you. She's carrying a bucket of coal, her face lined deep from squinting through soot and wind. Her child clings to her skirts, barefoot and coughing. She says nothing, just keeps walking. You wonder how long she's had that cough. You wring the shirt out and hang it over the line. A gust of wind nearly carries it away. You chase it, clamp it down with an old wooden pin. The breeze offers no real freshness. It smells of damp straw, boiled cabbage, and rotting fish. But it moves the air at least. You wash your underclothes next. The water turns brown almost immediately. You scrub harder. Blisters rise on your knuckles. You don't stop. You rinse them in the leftover water twice, then lay them beside the shirt. The wind grabs at them, flapping them like surrender flags. You strip down to your linen undershirt and crouch near the fire. You heat more water this time, just enough for a cloth bath. You soak the rag, wring it out, and start with your face. Your cheeks sting. You work your way down neck, shoulders, chest. You skip your legs. They're always hidden. You've convinced yourself the dirt protects them. You dry off and put on your cloak again. You feel lighter. Not fresh, never that, but a little less heavy. A little more bearable. Later, you help a neighbor slaughter a pig. The butcher's gone sick or dead, no one's sure, and meat waits for no one. You help hold the legs. The squeals turn quickly to silence. You avert your eyes. You've done this before, but it never gets easier. Blood pools in a shallow bowl, sticky and hot. You catch the smell, sharp, coppery, strangely clean compared to everything else. You help gut it, peeling back skin, separating fat, sorting organs. You wipe your hands on straw, then rinse them in the trough. No soap, just water. You still smell like blood, but it's better than nothing. You're paid with fat trimmings and a hunk of meat wrapped in cloth. It'll feed you for days if it doesn't spoil first. You boil it right away, stew it with onions and old turnips. The broth smells rich. You'll eat well tonight. As dusk settles, the sky darkens fast. The clouds part slightly, just enough to reveal a streak of fading pink. It's the first color you've seen in days. You sit by the fire, feet bare, shirtless, wrapped in your cloak, eating stew straight from the pot with a wooden spoon. You remember your mother's hands, broad, strong, always warm. She used to boil water with rosemary when you were sick, washed your face with it, kissed your brow. You haven't seen rosemary in months. You close your eyes and imagine the scent. It's not real, but for a moment it lingers. The fire pops. You add more wood. Before bed, you change into your clean shirt. It's rough from drying in the wind, but warm. You lie down, pulling your blanket up to your chin, and breathe through your nose. It's still you. Still sour, still smoky. But the edge is dulled now. There's soap in the fibers, boiled water in the seams. You close your eyes and let the smell of ash and sweat lull you into a dream. In the dream, you are scrubbing your hands, over and over, and they finally come clean. You awaken before dawn to the sound of bells, slow rhythmic and distant. Not the church bell for morning prayers, but the one reserved for the dead. Toll, pause, toll, pause. The sound echoes across the rooftops like a heartbeat faltering in the cold. You lie still, staring at the rafters above. A spider sways gently in its web, backlit by the faint blue of a waking sky. You listen to the bell until it stops, then rise slowly, joints popping as you stand. Your shirt feels stiff where it dried too close to the fire. It creaks as you move like the hull of an old ship. Still, it's clean, or at least cleaner than usual. You stretch, scratch your ribs, and step into your boots already crusted with old mud and worse. The street outside is glazed with frost. The gutters are quiet save for the occasional trickle of something unidentifiable oozing along their length. The smell today is milder thanks to the cold, but it's only a thin crust of relief over the same old rot. As you breathe it in, you feel the bite in your nose and throat. The staleness is so familiar now you hardly notice the details. It's just part of the world. Today you've agreed to help reinforce the town wall. Not for coin, there's not much of that left, but in exchange for a sack of barley and 2 small bundles of dried sage. You wonder how far a handful of herbs and grain can stretch, but you don't ask. Everyone's clinging to whatever keeps them moving. You reach the work site and find a crew already digging into the frozen ground. The air smells of wet soil and sweat. The men wear scarves over their mouths, not just for the chill, but out of superstition. They say breathing the same air as the sick is a death sentence. And they're not wrong. You pull your hood tighter and take your place along the wall, lifting stones, dragging timber. Your palms blister quickly, the skin softened from yesterday's washing. You feel the sting as the skin splits, but you don't stop. Pain is just part of the day now. The man beside you, a broad-shouldered tanner named Emmerich, hasn't bathed in weeks, maybe longer. His shirt is stained and crusted with dried blood from the hides he handles. He smells like rotted meat and sour lye. You try to keep your breath shallow, but he works hard, fast, with his eyes forward. That's what matters. No one cares how anyone smells anymore, not really. Only whether they keep standing. By midday, your shirt is soaked with sweat again, clinging to your back. You pull it away from your skin only to feel the scratch of dried salt and coarse fabric. You drink from a shared jug of weak ale, wiping the rim first out of habit, even though your hands are dirtier than the vessel. Emmerich offers you a bit of dried meat. You chew slowly, jaw aching from the effort. You both sit against the stone wall in silence, watching the gray sky darken, even though the sun hasn't set. A snow squall is rolling in. You can smell it in the wind, cold iron and dust. You wipe your nose on your sleeve and get back to work before you stiffen. The day passes in steady repetition, lift, drag, stack, brace. You wipe your brow constantly, leaving smudges of grime across your forehead. Your fingernails are black again. Your boots squelch with filth each time you shift your footing. When it's done, the wall still stands, and you do too. You accept your payment, barley sage, and a slap on the back that leaves a fresh smear of dirt across your cloak. You nod thanks and begin the walk home. On the way, you pass the town square and find something unusual, a small gathering. Not a riot, not a sermon, a bath. Someone brave or mad has set up a wooden tub in the open air. A fire roars beneath a great copper pot beside it. A line has formed, mostly women and children, waiting for a chance to wash. One at a time, people step into the tub, eyes closed, steam rising around their shoulders. It's quiet, reverent, like church. You stop and watch. You feel a pang, not jealousy, not quite. Longing. You want to feel warmth all over, not just on your face or your hands. You want the dirt gone from your knees, your scalp, your belly. You want to feel your skin again, not the layers of grime that separate you from yourself. But the line is long, and you have barley to carry, sage to dry, a fire to build. You move on. Back home, you boil water for food and add a pinch of the sage. It fills the room with a scent you haven't smelled in months. Earthy, clean, sharp. It reminds you of the forest in late spring, of the fields before planting. For a moment, your hovel smells like hope. You eat slowly, breathing in between bites. You place the rest of the barley in a clay jar and set the sage to dry above the hearth. Later, you prepare your evening cloth bath. You boil water again just enough and add a few sage leaves to the pot. The scent deepens. You dip the cloth, wring it out, and press it to your face. It stings your cracked lips, burns slightly in your nose. But it feels real, like it's doing something. You wipe down your arms, your chest, your feet. You use slow, careful strokes, not just to clean, but to feel, to reconnect with your own skin. You wring the cloth again, steam curling upward. It's not a bath, but it's a kind of baptism. The fire crackles softly as you lay back in your bedding. The smell of sage still lingers. The shirt against your skin is still stiff. Your hair still smells faintly of smoke and wool. But your feet are clean. Your hands are clean. And that's enough. You close your eyes, listening to the quiet outside. No shouting, no carts, no bells, just wind. And for tonight, that silence is a kind of peace. You wake to the sound of scratching, not rats for once, but something more deliberate. You hold still, ears pricked. It's coming from the door. A soft, slow scrape. Then a whisper. Please. Bread. You rise without thinking. You crack the door open just wide enough to see a boy no older than 10 kneeling in the dirt. His face is smudged, his lips cracked white from cold and thirst. His eyes are too big for his face. He looks like someone you might have known once before everything changed. You don't ask where he's from. You hand him the last heel of your barley loaf and close the door before he can say thank you. You press your back against the wood and exhale. That bread was meant for tomorrow. But then again, everything is meant for tomorrow these days. And yet tomorrow keeps arriving with its hunger and cold and smell. You begin your day as you always do, with fire. You prod the coals until a few spark back to life. You blow gently, then feed in thin twigs until flames lick the blackened pot. Today's meal will be thin again, a broth made from yesterday's bones, an onion that's just this side of rot, and a single sprig of sage you saved. The scent fills your tiny room and masks the mildew for a while. Your fingers, when you dip them into the rising steam, are rough and split at the knuckles. The skin along your thumbs is blackened from work and wind. You rub a bit of fat on them and wrap them with linen. You won't feel better, but at least you'll feel something. Outside, the world has hardened. Snow still clings to corners of the street, but mostly it's slush, now gray, foul, flecked with waste. The gutters are running again, choked with filth from a town too tired to clean itself. Somewhere nearby, someone is burning clothes again. You can smell the wool and sweat in the smoke. Someone died. Someone tried to destroy the evidence. You step carefully, the slush sucking at your boots, your toes already soaked. You head to the apothecary, not because you're sick, not yet, but to barter for anything that smells cleaner than the air. Something sharp, something alive. The shop is quiet. The shelves are emptier than usual. Dried roots in paper bundles, clay pots sealed with wax. You trade a tin cup and a worn comb for a small bottle of rosemary tincture. It's almost clear, but the smell is strong cleaner than anything you've owned in weeks. You uncork it and let a single drop fall into your palm. You rub it across your chest, your throat, your temples. The scent burns. It makes your eyes water. You love it. On the way home, you pass the church. The doors are open now, not for mass, but for the sick. The pews have been pushed aside and replaced with pallets and straw. The smell hits you before you cross the threshold: urine, sweat, vomit, old blood. Death. But still you step inside. You help where you can, handing water to the delirious, placing cool rags on foreheads. You don't touch skin if you can help it. Everyone wears a cloth over their face. Some have stitched herbs into theirs. Yours is soaked with the last of your rosemary tincture. It helps a little. A girl clutches your hand with surprising strength. She has no hair, left her skin yellowed with fever. "Do I smell?" she asks. Her voice is raspy. You lie. "No," you whisper. Later, as dusk falls, you leave the church with your sleeves damp from sweat and holy water. You smell like other people now, like the sick, the dying, the prayers no one wants to say aloud. You reach home and strip at the door. You leave your clothes in a heap beside the fire. You pour the last of your water into a bowl, heat it, and dip a cloth. You wash every inch of yourself. You can reach arms, neck, underarms, belly, even your ears. You rinse the cloth again and again, watching the water darken with each pass. You take the rosemary tincture and dab it behind your ears, under your nose, at your wrists. You breathe in. For a moment, it's just you. Not the street. Not the death. Not the dirt. You wrap yourself in your cloak, which still smells faintly of soap from last week's miracle. You eat the rest of the bone broth slowly, as if it's a feast. And before you lie down, you kneel your hands, still damp, and whisper a prayer. Not for protection, not even for strength, but for the ability to smell the difference between rot and life one more day. Then you sleep, and the rosemary stays with you in your dreams. The snow returns overnight silent and thick. When you step outside at dawn, the world is muffled under a layer of soft white. For a moment, it almost feels clean. The gutters are hidden. The stench is softened. The air bites at your cheeks and makes your nose run, but you breathe it in deeply, gratefully. Even filth can be buried by snow for a while. You wrap your cloak tighter and head toward the edge of town. Word has spread that a shipment has arrived, a cart full of wool from the lowland farms. You hope to trade for scraps, anything warm to line your bedding. But everyone else has the same idea. The line is long, stretching past the baker's closed door and the empty stall that once sold fish. You stand with the others bundled in layers that haven't been washed in months. Around you, the collective scent is something between wet dog and spoiled grain. You can pick out individual notes if you try damp leather, unwashed feet, grease mildew, and something worse. But no one speaks of it. To comment on a neighbor's smell is to risk hearing about your own. You shift your weight from foot to foot, trying to keep warm. The man in front of you is missing a shoe. His toes are blue nails blackened, and you look away. Behind you, a woman sneezes into her shawl. She mutters an apology. You don't reply. When your turn comes, the merchant eyes you're offering a strip of salted meat and a few beads from a broken necklace. He considers, then tosses you a bundle of rough, scratchy wool. Not clean, not soft, but warmer than what you have. You nod your thanks and leave quickly. Back home, you shake the snow from your shoulders and lay the wool by the hearth. It smells like a sheep that's been rolled in ashes. You wrinkle your nose but fold it carefully and line your straw bedding with it. It will itch. It will shed. But it might help you sleep. You boil a pot of water, just water, and add the last of your dried mint. It's more for the smell than the taste. You sip it slowly, letting the steam rise around your face. The scent fills the room, lifting the corners of the damp, smoke-stained air. You think about how strange it is that something as simple as a warm scent can make you feel human again. Later, you walk to the common fire pit in the town square. A few of your neighbors are there warming their hands, sharing stories in hushed tones. One man is burning old clothes, his wife's, you think. She died 3 days ago, and no one came to carry her away. He buried her himself. He doesn't speak much now. You sit nearby and listen. A woman talks about a miracle herb she heard about from a traveling monk. Another claims vinegar in the nostrils cured her cousin. A boy swears that boiling pine needles and inhaling the steam keeps death at bay. You nod along, not because you believe, but because hope is all anyone has left. Someone passes around a lump of soap, real soap, hard and pale with a faint smell of animal fat and herbs. You all take turns holding it, smelling it, passing it like a relic. No one uses it. It's too precious. Just touching it feels like bathing. As the sun sets, you make your way home again. The snow crunches under your feet. The wind has shifted, and the town's usual stench returns a mix of rotting food dung and the slow decay of human life. But it doesn't hit you as hard tonight. Maybe the cold is numbing it. Maybe your nose is too used to it. Or maybe it's just that you still carry a memory of mint steam and warm wool. You light your hearth and settle in. The room smells faintly better now. You've scrubbed the corners, aired the bedding, and even wiped the walls with a rag soaked in hot water and thyme. It's not much. The smell always returns. But tonight, you've earned this. You wash your hands in a warm bowl scrub beneath your nails, rinse your face. The cloth comes away blackened as always. You dry your skin and rub your fingers with a bit of leftover animal fat. It stinks, but it softens the cracks. You climb into bed and wrap yourself in the new wool. It scratches your neck and makes your skin crawl, but it's warm. That's enough. You stare at the ceiling and think of something absurd, what it might be like to be clean for more than a day. What it might feel like to sleep in fresh linen, to brush your teeth every morning, to bathe in water you didn't have to fight for. You smile, faintly, eyes fluttering closed. Your hands still smell of mint and wood smoke. And for tonight, that's enough to carry you into sleep. You wake in the small hours, not to noise, but to silence so complete and sudden that it pulls you from your dreams like a hand yanking you from water. You sit up slowly, heart thudding. The fire has burned down to embers and your breath fogs in the cold air. Then you notice it. The smell is different. Not better, not worse. Just changed. Fainter. Thinner. The rot is still there, but as if someone turned the volume down. You lie still, unsure if it's a trick of your senses or something real. Has the wind shifted? Has the death cart already passed? Or is this what the world smells like when most of it has gone quiet? You rise, pulling your cloak around your shoulders. The wool you lined your bedding with has softened a little with use, though it still leaves red lines on your skin. You light a small stub of candle and place it by the hearth. The pale glow reveals the same bent wooden beams, the same soot-streaked walls, but the air feels expectant. You move through the house quietly, checking the water barrel, the food jar, the bundle of herbs above the door. Everything's in place. Still, you feel a pull to open the door to step outside to see what's changed. And so barefoot and quiet you do. The town is still asleep. No voices, no footsteps, not even dogs. The snow has returned fine and dry, a thin sheet covering the ground like a burial shroud. The gutters have frozen over the filth beneath, locked away at least for now. The roofs glimmer in the moonlight, and then you see its smoke curling slowly from chimneys. That's what changed. Fires are lit. Homes are occupied. The plague hasn't taken everyone. Not yet. You breathe in deeply, the cold slicing through your nose and chest. The usual stench is there, muted by the frost. But beneath it, faint and unexpected, is something else. Rosemary. From your own collar, from the cloth still tied around your neck. And behind it, the sweet mineral scent of clean snow. For the first time in months, your breath doesn't catch from the foulness. You exhale slowly, watching the fog curl in the moonlight. You walk a short distance past the bakery, the shutters still drawn past the cooper's house with a broken hinge on the gate. The town feels like it's holding its breath. You crouch near the town's well, press your hand to the side, and feel ice under your fingers. But you also hear the faint trickle of water below, moving, alive. That's the word, isn't it? Alive. You head back, steps slow and deliberate. Your toes are numb by the time you reach the door. You strip off your cloak, rub your feet with a cloth, and tuck yourself back into the bedding. The scratchy wool doesn't bother you tonight, nor does the dirt still embedded beneath your nails. You curl your fingers and pull the blanket up to your chin. Tomorrow you'll do it again, wake, work, scrub, boil, rinse. Tomorrow you might smell the filth more sharply, or maybe not at all. You'll add a few sprigs of dried thyme to your stew, not because they improve the flavor, but because they remind you of something beyond the day-to-day. And one day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even next season, but one day the stench of death will be gone. The gutters will be cleared. The bathhouse might reopen. Children might play in the streets again, barefoot, and laughing the air warm and not dangerous. You close your eyes. You know that the world doesn't clean itself in a night. That disease doesn't vanish because you hang herbs or scrape your skin raw. But cleanliness, true. Cleanliness isn't just about the absence of dirt. It's about the return of breath, of life, of scent that doesn't repulse but revives. And even if your shirt still smells like smoke and lye, and your mattress like old straw, there is rosemary at your throat. There is snow outside. And you are still here, still breathing, still hoping. Let's take a breath now. You made it. You survived the mud, the rot, the lice, and the latrines. Maybe you didn't get a proper bath, very few did, but you found a way to carry on through each freezing morning and every rank, rotting night. You wiped your hands, scrubbed your neck, dipped your feet in warm water when you could. You hung herbs and whispered prayers and wrapped yourself in scratchy wool that made you feel, if only for a moment, human. And it mattered. In a world where death lurked on every doorstep, and no one dared to speak of the stink around them. Your quiet acts of resistance, your cloth baths, your clean fingernails, your mint-soaked rags became more than just survival. They were dignity, defiance, life itself. As you lie there now in your own warm space, cleaner than they ever dreamed of being, know this: your ancestors endured filth so profound, it would haunt our noses forever if memory had scent. And yet they lived. They dreamed. They passed down not just stories but instincts, like the way we still light candles, still wash our hands, still breathe deeply when the air smells like rain. So take a deep breath now. The lice are long gone. The rosemary is only a memory, and the scent of smoke is just your imagination. You're clean. You're safe. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the soft creak of a wooden shutter, the hush of falling snow, or the faint whisper of someone long ago scrubbing at their skin in the half-light, hoping for another morning.